Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a GeekVerse review. I am your host, Travis Snell. Kirklin's back, but here I am on my solo venture once again. Just a big thank you to everybody that did support me the past few months, as far as just months, not plural. As far as doing solo stuff, obviously, Kirklin's back. Taylor will be coming back this week, August 27th. If you want to watch live, it's going to be myself and Taylor Field versus Travis Hines and Clay from DC Alliance. It's Geek versus DC Alliance. If Clay loses, he loses the title shot to my toe. Just sitting over there, I'm not going to get it because it's kind of out of the way. But a big thank you because people are starting to come back. But yeah, beginning of September, I'll be taking my little break. I have a project which only a few people know about, but I will announce and everything like that. But a big thank you to everyone listening. But this is Reminiscence. So as usual, it's going to be me, myself, and I'm going to give you my non-spoiler thoughts. So if you haven't, you don't go to HBO Max, you're thinking about seeing it in theaters, you can listen to the first 10, 15 minutes. I'll give you no spoilers whatsoever. I'll take a break, let you know, have a drink of my glorious water because I am alone. So I'll tell you when I have a water break. And then we'll get into spoilers. So yeah, and just as always, the kind of housekeeping up top, head down to the link down below and you can find, or I guess the description has all links. You can find everything we do this week. If you want to follow us, best way to do that is follow us on Twitter and Facebook and subscribe as far as YouTube or your podcast feed. And if you're subscribed on podcast feed and it's Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star written review. That genuinely helps. That gets up the charts and new people see it. So if you can't support us anyway, we would appreciate that. Next week's going to be this week, whatever. This is dropping on a Monday. Gonna be very busy. We should at least have 2 newscasts and Candyman review. I think Candyman's gonna be me solo again because those guys they were booked. I think there's a couple mates, but it's me, Travis. Hashtag Travis is the brand. King of GeekVerse, all that stuff. Anyways, I guess we got 4 podcasts. Actually, we got 5 podcasts. We have 6 podcasts this week at least. We have what just dropped. I dropped the Ant-Man retrospective. We have, I think, Civil War will come out, and then Shang-Chi will be here. So that's kind of catching up. So we have a few left for that, but that's again some old episodes being put back in the feeds. People haven't been listening to them. They're lots of fun for people that now, because lots of these movies we talk about, like, oh, we think this is gonna happen, and we're either completely wrong or completely right. You got this. Me and Dylan at some point are going to review a Ghost of Tsushima director's cut review. Obviously, you can go back if you're into Avengers. I just did War for Wakanda. And then we're going to be at least 2 newscasts, maybe 3. It all depends on if that pesky little Spider-Man trailer drops. While you're listening to this, if it's live, expect a newscast right on the Monday night, recording live and stuff like that. But we'll be covering Gamescom's Xbox presentation and some other news on Tuesday. And then Wednesday night, we will be back with the opening live coverage. Like I said, me and Dylan review Ghost of Tsushima director's cut at some point, and then What If episode 3 and Candyman. So again, as we've said, that's why we head over to our Patreon. If you read the about section, you guys making more content, or sorry, supporting us more gets us more content because it gives us time to do all these things and actually kind of reimburse us for the hard work we do put in this, because this is legitimately now for us a second job, especially for myself this month doing it solo. Man, it felt more as a second job than ever. But we have a good time because you guys keep supporting us. We're not sure it's gonna be down to the wire, so download, support, everything like that. But we've had our biggest month 5 months in a row, and if it happens again at 6, if not, it was a good streak. But it's looking pretty good. So you guys have just been animals. So thank you very much for supporting us and everyone for GeekVerse, what we do. Head over and check out all our podcast feed, the GeekVerse feed, the retrospective feed, the review feed, which you could be finding this episode on, the news feed. So you can stay up to date with all the content. As you just heard, we're having 5 to 6 casts drop this week. And I know, like, hey, if you're not into review or you want to make sure you don't miss any newscasts, that's why they're separate feeds. Check out our podcast network. If you're looking for a review, Shang-Chi, Brent got to see that, 2.5 weeks early. So there's a non-spoilers reaction there. Really good spoilers, nothing. But yeah, just lots of stuff. That's doing very well as well. Geek Ultimate Alliance. So check that out. Again, all's in the feed. I think that's everything. Shout out to our Patreon people in general, but shout out to Aaron Braden and Carl Ritchie, our Patreon producers. They're the top tier and they really keep us going. So big thank you for that. But I think that's everything. So let's get into Reminiscence. So this is a movie that I had no idea what it was actually about. But I remember HBO Max when they did we're putting the whole slate on, HBO Max for next year. They released a sizzle reel, and all it was like the title card and Hugh Jackman walking around looking like a detective and looking sexy. So, excuse me. So I am, if you don't know, a massive Hugh Jackman fan. I legitimately do think he is in as far as top 10 lists, he's a top 10 best actor. I think he's one of those he doesn't get typecast luckily, but I think people just think of him as Wolverine. His other performances, like The Prestige, what he did that movie last year where he was the teacher. Oh, I can't remember his HBO Max movie, but it was so good. He should have won all the Emmys. I guess you could count Swordfish and stuff like that. But even in movies like The Greatest Showman, he is always good. He's never been bad. He's just a guy that, real steel, stuff like that. He just knows that, what's that expression? He knows the assignment and he delivers. But I think he is a great, not the same way, luckily, because he did a lot more character roles, but it's the same way as Matthew McConaughey when he was doing all the rom-coms. And then when he started acting, people were like, holy crap, he can do that. I don't think people think that same way of Hugh Jackman, but I think people just think of him as a top tier, like, oh well, he's Wolverine, and they don't think about much else. And maybe that shows that maybe it doesn't draw as much because this movie this weekend didn't do the greatest. It did like 2 million and stuff like that. It's also on HBO Max, but still, I think that just to me shows that people right now, if they're gonna go to the theaters, they're gonna see the big event movies, and the smaller ones might fall the wayside, and that might be something going forward anyway. So I was automatically intrigued, and I started to learn more about Rebecca Ferguson. Same thing. I'd put her top 10 actresses right now. So, maybe top 50. She's in there. She's in the conversation. I'd have to look at the list. I can't remember. I made a list recently, and I don't know if she was in it. It doesn't matter. One of the best going right now. She always gives like such unique, layered performances, and so I knew a few things about it. Knew that Lisa Joy had done it, and I'll come back to Lisa Joy in a second, but just knew it was a movie at some point, not much information. Trailer kicked in. I absolutely love the trailer. The music, the feel, the editing, the world building, all in this, and showing this great cast, everything like that. And it kind of looked like a combination of Blade Runner and James Bond. And James Bond, in a sense, is they showed lots of like action stuff and like time with the music. And it's like, him, like they're showing him jump from buildings and he's kicking ass and stuff like that. And, he was one of the rumored choices for James Bond at some point in our lifetime. So it was like, okay, and I love that sort of sci-fi noir sort of feel, right? I think like I'm not going to say anything unique here, but if you like that, you could probably trace it back to the first time you saw Blade Runner, right? Blade Runner, I watched in film class and I was like, fuck, this is a movie. And it was so good. And then you learn about all the other, connections and stuff like that. And I think with this movie, one of the best things about it is as far as detective noir, sort of like sci-fi noir, is even in a detective movie, I like them. But the reason I like detective movies a lot, but as far as detectives like sci-fi noir movies, those are ones where like, okay, this is my jam. This is what's really getting the fire going, because you get to one, look into the mystery, but then two, you also through the character's eyes get to learn about the world and whatever the world might be. And you've probably seen the trailers. The world is there's a few things, but the main thing is there's been massive floods, so there's constantly cities in towns that are riddled with water. The streets, like they literally have these cars that are raised up so they can drive through them. Houses are dripping all the time, so that's cool. And then when you learn about this actual machine called the Remnants, and we'll get to that in spoilers. And I guess what I should say is, so saw the trailer, was so hyped, like already interested in it, and then I saw like, okay, this is next. I always said it was Last Night in Soho, and then this is my most anticipated movies of the year. And luckily it has, I don't know if I would say lived up to it, but I very much enjoyed it. I think right now I have it in my top 5. Now it's very interesting because I did not get to see this the Friday. My plan was to see it the Thursday. My theater had no showings, and then it was just a very busy weekend. My project is coming up, so there's lots of stuff I'm getting ready for. So I didn't get to it till today, and I didn't get to see it in theaters. I saw it at home. My plan was to see it in theaters the Thursday. I was going to do what was it? Oh, Free Guy and that back to back. You can check out. I just reviewed Free Guy recently. That was my plan. Like, okay, perfect, done deal. And then, oh no, it wasn't Free Guy. Free Guy's been. I thought there was something else. Maybe not. Either way, plan to see it. Had to wait a few days later, and so I'd heard the reception, right, and it was kind of double waves as far as I had like reviews weren't coming out. I think reviews drop for it like on a Wednesday, so that's never good when a movie's coming on a Thursday, right? So it means that's not screening that well or it's not testing that well. So reviews were pretty, I think they're like, it's like 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. So as far as critic goes, they're right down the middle, right? As far as a pass and fail and everything like that. So I was like, okay, that's a little disappointing. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more. And here's the thing. I can look at a crit score. Oh, I was hoping I was going to do better going into it, but still go, oh, I'm going to watch and judge for myself. Same reason as why, yeah, it's like a 50%, maybe lower. But I can say, oh no, I love this. This is a top 5 film for me this year. And that happens a lot of times. Like, but some people can't differentiate. They're like, if the critics are, if it's bad, then it's going to be bad. Or it's like, they got to like fucking ride against them. Like, oh, you don't know shit. No, it's just this collection of people that review the movie are 50-50 on it. It's like, okay, but at least if you were to ask me, what would I rather have, 50-50 buzz or good buzz going in? We'll see with Shang-Chi's coming out in a few weeks, but right now, reviewing very well, right? So it's like, okay, this is what I want to see. I'd rather buzz be good about it. So it gets you a little more excited. So luckily that happened. But then the weekend, there's lots of people watching it that I follow, or there are kind of critics, whatnot, that's saying they really liked it, or it might be like a hidden gem because of the kind of mixed reaction stuff. So it's like, okay, what's going to happen here? And to tile back to Lisa Joy, I loved the first season of Westworld. I could argue, like the same way when Game of Thrones came out, I was like, okay, I think it could be that level. I never watched season 2 because it's one of those things with so much content, went to go watch it, and then just fell behind. And then I heard mixed things. And then I've heard mixed things about that show since it's been going. Now, this is interesting because I still enough, if I hear mixed things from multiple people, I go, I could probably skip it. I heard mixed things about this, and I want to say I loved it, but it's not in the sense of, there's definitely like in my movies this year of like a tier. It's not like The Green Knight or Fear Street. So it's not like a 10 out of 10 or anything like that. There's still like, it's the below one. So I loved it, but it doesn't reinvent the wheel as far as like the detective stuff or the murder mystery stuff. It's pretty not paint by numbers, but it's like, you've seen stuff like this done before. Now, I could argue there's some things done better, or it's done better as far as acting wise, because Hugh Jackman, he's so good. And there's a few scenes in here he really delivers. There's one I'll put on spoilers near the back end of this movie. Man, I just look at him like, you are an actor, like you're so good. And I think Hugh Jackman to me always has this thing of, even if he plays like this, this guy's like, he's a war veteran, but he's a pretty relatively normal guy. He's not like playing like a Wolverine, right? Or even like a Danton the Great from Prestige. He's like a guy who's doing a job and gets racked up into a mystery. He just kind of has that Tom Hanks thing where he can play a normal guy so well and you believe it. But I think he does a great job. And that's the other thing. If you ask me, if you put another actor in here that's not one of my favorites, would I like it as much? I don't know, because I think a lot of the dialogue and scenes he has to carry. So that's why I think I love the film, but there's still, I don't think it's like a home run like I was kind of hoping. Like I was kind of hoping that, and it's not just because she is the sister-in-law, but I was hoping for like a Blade Runner 2049 or an Inception or something like that, where it's like, oh, this is one of my favorite movies. Is that a lot of hype to have on a movie? Absolutely. But the pieces were all there as far as the creators, the talent, that trailer. So really enjoyed it. Like I said, could say I loved it. There's some nitpicks I have here. It's not perfect movie. Like I said, there's a little bit predictableness about it. There are some things that I think in the middle kind of meanders a little, but I'm excited to watch again, which I will, because once the mystery goes, you okay, what I put together. The mystery is not like, it's not anything crazy, and I think there's sometimes where they tried it, and I think I've kind of seen this before, that people say, oh, it's not as dark as it proposes. To me, it's not that it's as dark, it's just that it feels like it's setting you up for like a real gut punch. And I think there's maybe one, but there's a few times where like, you're not gonna believe this, and then when you see it, you're like, oh, okay. And then a character is like learning this information. It's like, well, we learned this an hour ago. So the impact's kind of gone. So I don't know if that is just a placing of scenes or maybe a overwriting things. And that's what I could say. So again, I really enjoyed it. But as far as Westworld, that does make me more convinced to give it a shot now, because it's like, well, if that was mixed and I enjoyed this, here we go. It's something like, many directors, and M. Night Shyamalan, Zack Snyder, right? I was talking about this recently with our Patreon Clay, where we're talking about the reviews, and he's like, "Oh man, same thing. I wish it was reviewing a bit better." And I go, "Yes," and I've always been this way, but like, I think because for a while there was times where I always say people get so mad Rotten Tomatoes, and I don't really understand it. Is it a little flawed? Sure, but like, it's not that flawed if you go and investigate. If you go into the scores and you click on the like score info, they'll give you the like average and what like people they just don't like when their movie gets negatively rated, right? But most of the time there's movies that I might love and they're raw on like negative, rated and whatnot, and I go, okay, I can see that. Like I understand this completely. And or even movies that I don't love, like I really enjoy, but I go, yeah, I see why this is run. I think recently the last time I had this, like, also the big example would be something like people always talking about these wars is BVS, right? And for me, it's like, yeah, I like BVS, but when I watch, I go, yeah, I don't think this is a good movie. I can see why people would bring it down. And I kind of see that with my next example, which would be Split, but that's a movie where, you know, did not review well. Hype was completely dead on arrival. But when I watched it, like, I fucking love this movie. It's great. Like it hit everything I thought. It was like an M. Night Shyamalan. Like it's what I expected of him. Now you get to old, and I'm completely on the opposite spectrum of like, I think it, oh, maybe it didn't review well, but so I'm like, okay, this is brutal. But either way, I liked it. All the cast is good. I think Hugh Jackman is great. I think everyone else is good. Rebecca Ferguson has some really nice moments, but I think that I will talk more about her in spoilers. And it's nothing against her as an actress. I think it's more of a writing thing of why it was maybe my limited on how I thought about her. Who else is in there? Tandy Newton. Is it Tandy or Tandy? I can't remember. Either way, Miss Newton, she's great. It was great to see Lisa Joy like use some of the people that even from season one Westworld that were in here, so they use that. The villains and whatnot are like the antagonists, not really any actors to write home about, and there's no one giving that sort of performance. And I think that's I won't say too much because there is like a mystery aspect to it, but I don't know if the antagonist nor the story is like that interesting. It's more the characters, you know, aka Hugh Jackman around it. The reminiscence stuff is really cool. If you've seen the trailers, you know the gimmick. You lay in a bathtub and it's like you think about, I don't get more in spoilers, but you think about something of your life and they can replay your memories. And like I said, they show us in this trailer, maybe it's minor spoilers, but it's like it's pretty much just like a memory theater where you go in there, you pay somebody, okay, I'd like to go back to this day of my life, whether it be like a graduation or a wedding or like someone having their baby, stuff like that. And I want to relive that. And it's not just seeing on the screen, it's like literally living. And like I said, my spoiler, they kind of show you the difference where you can get these things printed out that you could watch this memory and over, but someone mentions that like it's not the same as the reminiscence. Like you can feel someone's arms around you, you can get the smell, the taste, like all of it. You know, like you're literally reliving that. So that was really cool how they use it as far as like very Minority Report ish as like a tool to. It's not the same way Minority Report is seeing the future. It's funny where that sees the future of like what you could have done. This is like literally, you know, you see the whole past and helps people find out mysteries. It's very at times, and this is because some of the reminiscent scenes are like in first person, feels very video gamey, but in a good way. It feels very, you know, kind of detective. I'm trying to think of what the it feels kind of like oh man, what is that game? Even though it wasn't in first person, it was the game that they did before Detroit Become Human. You guys probably know. If not, you can search up and know. But let's see what else. Action is good, but I think the trailers make it seem like it's a bit more of an action. Like when I saw the trailers, I was like this. Like I said, I compared it like a detective noir, like Blade Runner and Bond, right? The bondness is not there. The action is very minimal, and that's not a negative part, but I just feel like the trailers show a bit more. I think there is maybe 3 scenes of big action. That's about it. I was talking to somebody, Carl, who's usually always wrong, so don't take his opinion. But I think he described it as like a boring watch, and I could see that if you were looking for more of an action heavy centric one. But this, I like that it is a character piece, so it's very much like if you know me, it's a Travis movie, right? The story, like I said, the mystery is a little predictable. It's not knockout, you know, home run, but the character work, and it's very much about like, you know, the trailers proposes, but living in the moment versus living in the past and stuff like that, or worrying about your future, or taking it in as far as he says this line in the trailer, right? Nothing's more addictive than the past. And it kind of has that sort of like theme to it throughout the whole thing. It also has a theme of trying to escape who you were to become someone new. So you got Hugh Jackman gives some great like narrative and, you know, inner dialogue stuff. So it all works. And there's actually some like, as far as again, it's nothing we've really crazily seen before, and this doesn't go to everybody, but I think if you have ever been in a relationship with somebody that you can't fully trust them, and hopefully it's ended and you're still not in the relationship, and that's not mine, luckily. But like if you've ever been in that situation and you've ever been anxious or nervous or questioning every decision you make, I think they do that good. Where the mystery is kind of, you know, but we've been here, done that. It's Hugh Jackman, and the character is he's going through quite a journey, and he is constantly on not on the up and up, and he's just trying to figure this all out. And I think that's the best thing. He plays a desperate character, and I think that's what I worried about was when they introduced him, like he's a war vet and everything like that. That kind of just sets up more of his backstory and things about him, and he actually has an injury in the movie. Where I feel like there's sometimes where like Tom Hiddleston, Kong Skull Island, it's like, well, we need a tracker so we can find Kong, right? And I get they could be in the war, but it's like they find the tracker, but then they also emphasize like, yeah, he was an ass kicker, he did this, he served this, blah, blah, and just like sometimes it's nice just to have the leads that like, and this happens in this movie multiple times where it's like he's not great at this and he's like put in bad situations all the time. He's on the back foot. He is kind of sometimes made out to be a pathetic character, a desperate character, as I said before. And I think you kind of root for that because it's a bit more, you can latch on to that. I'm not saying you out there are pathetic or something, but you may see some of the flaws in this character and go, I have those flaws. I saw that too before. And I think I'll mention that in spoilers. I think that's where the movie doesn't stick with you because it doesn't double down on something like the, potential setup or some of the maybe like inner darkness. But would I recommend this? Like I said, if you like a Blade Runner, if you like a Looper in the sense of like this, it's not a detective movie, but that's in the sense of there is kind of a mystery there, but it's like a sci-fi world with new, gimmicks and features and like a world building scenario. It gives you like a slice of that, but I quite enjoy that. So yeah, you like Hugh Jackman, you like detective stuff. If you like some with a dash of sci-fi, it's there for you. Yeah, I do like if you want to see in the theater, you could. I wish I would have, but just life gone the way. It was still serviceable on the TV. And I also don't think it's like a visual smorgasbord where it's like with Kong versus Skull Island, Kong versus Skull, Kong versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus Kong. Now, I did not like that movie, but that's one where I wish I would have saw in theaters, but our theaters weren't open that time. So it's like, okay, that's one where it's like some of the scale would have been nice to see. This, I don't think it has too much scale. There's some nice city shots. There's some really like gorgeous shots. They already showed in the trailer having to do with water, but nothing that you have to see. So I'm gonna take a break. This is non-spoilers ending right now. So if you've not seen the movie and you're interested, come back. This review will be sitting here, whether it's on the main feed or the Geek First review feed. So we'll be right back after this ad break. And we're back. So again, this is your last moment. I don't think I have like it's not gonna be a huge deep dive. Like it's not crazy, right? But as you've seen from the trailers, Hugh Jack and the trailer lays it out pretty well. I kind of figured it out, but as you can see, Hugh Jackman meets this woman, and there's a lot of mystery around, right? And now we're in spoilers. I don't gotta be cagey around it. They strike a relationship up, they go missing. That was the first very fun little twist. Is like the whole first of the movie is him, Hugh Jackman's character, which I actually don't know. For some reason, I thought it was Nick, but then I went back on it. I know his last name was like Bannister, but let's get it here. But anyways, he meets this woman, they fall in love, and then she just it is Nick Bannister. Yes. They just fall in love, and then one day she's just gone. She's vanished, and that was the big twist, or the little twist at the beginning was this whole first 20-15 minutes was him in the Reminiscence trying to think about this, figure it out, and his co-partner, I'll get her name while I'm watching doing this. Let's see, Watts, played by Tandy Newton, she like wakes him up and like stop doing this. So it's like something where it seems like it's a problem. He's still trying to figure out, and what it seems like at the beginning is okay, he has suffered a bad breakup and he's just not getting over it, right? And that's kind of how Watts is proposing that to him. Like, she's moved on, you haven't. Like, it just happens. People aren't, who they seem to be. But his is like people don't just vanish. They had a life. They talked about like going away together, all this stuff. So he was clearly falling in love. She goes disappearing. They use this just on the side, but sometimes they go and help out with, you know, cases. Like he was supposed to, there's one guy, and I can't remember the actor's name, but he plays Thomas Wayne in the Joker. He goes to the court, and they were going to put this guy in the tank because he was on trial, and he's going to be put in the tank to look at his thoughts to see, okay, is this man guilty of what he did? Yada yada yada. But he's deemed like too unhealthy to do and whatnot. They start to interlace, and this is where it's kind of very convenient. But he goes to the court case, and then he gets, like I said, wrapped up in this, deposition or something to use these tanks. And later on, it comes they have another guy who's like brain dead, but they could still use his, or he's in a coma or something, but they could still use his past thoughts as a way to figure out about this case. And they also, again, with the world building, they set up a lot with the world. They tell stories of, during the war, with the water, stuff like that, and how the rich. They Nick described it as the Titanic. The two things that survived were the rich and the mice, or the rats. So it's like the low's the low found a way, and then the top dogs are still around, and they still have like they are living in those spots where there's not water on the streets. It's getting close because even there's like a wetness kind of around there, but it's like they still live in a kind of normal world. All the rich people, the rest of the people are kind of fending for themselves. New Orleans is like completely like watered over, and they have these great moments where people are riding taxis, but the taxis are literally just a boat with the word taxi on them. So that was fun. Again, cool world building. The other thing they mentioned is there's this drug called Bacca, and it's like a big high, but like you can't kick it. Like it's very rare for people to kick it. They talk about this, people get hooked on it right away, and it's very hard. But it's kind of like it's kind of like their methods in poop, blue form and it's blue. It's in sorry, pill form and it's blue, not blue form. I don't know what that would be. So he gets linked up with this case right now. He right away is like, well, or he's in a room and there's beside them people like, have you found this woman? Have you? So right away, probably about 10 minutes, you go, okay, clearly Rebecca Ferguson's character is May. They're gonna get linked up, these kids. Like it didn't even feel subtle at all. It was just look right there, that guy, the guy that's talking shadily about this thing, of course it's gonna be about her, and she's gone missing. So that's how we get to he's helping interrogate this guy who's, like I said, in a coma, and it's 5 years ago, and they're what is the guy's name? There's like a mobster who's like the big one of the guys, Saint Joe. He could lead them to like a bunch of few things, right? As far as the drugs, there's some other like money being laundered. I think there's like one guy's into some bad stuff and everything like that. It kind of gets not convoluted, but they throw like a lot in there to try and make it seem like a big mystery. And I'll one time try to break it down, give a timeline here. But they jump 5 years in the past, and while they see St. Joe and they kind of see that there's a dirty cop there, which we'll get into, they see May, and then Hugh Jackman, it's so good because the cops and Watts is there. He's just freaking out. All he's asking is about the girl. And this is what I really liked too, that if you've seen the trailers and if you, I don't know, now you've seen the movie, he has a microphone and he will, when he puts someone down the Reminiscence, say you're going on a journey, a place you've been before, all this kind of stuff, right? Now with this guy they're interrogating the tank, he has the mic and they have to get him to certain locations, but almost like hints, or like they are leading on very much like a regular interrogation to someone to a point that they want to get to. So he would just be like, hey, when was the last time you know, what was your last thought? What was your last interaction with St. Joe, or something like that? It's worded a bit better in the script. And then he'll be like, when did you see that girl last, and stuff like that. And then it slowly he kind of talks to more. And at one point, because the guy was in a coma, they say, oh, well, his brain's so shut down, it's kind of like trying to keep him alive. So he doesn't really have the brain power to do this. I think that's what they were saying, the brain power to do this interrogation. And it's just kind of shut down. Like all he wants to think about is happy thoughts. The brain just wants to think about happy thoughts right now while the body's in pain. So what he does is I really liked it. I thought it was a clever line. It's like, oh, Joe, you like to party? And it brings it to a party. So it's the kind of like thing where he's tricking the brain as far as like he's using something that his brain would like and associate with something good. But the second it's, it is a party. But when you get to the party, it's seeing St. Joe and other people. And he gets beat up at this party because he starts to kind of question Rebecca Ferguson's character, stuff like that. So it's a fun way of like he's trying to maneuver the brain. And at one point, when he sees May, that's all he focuses on, right? Is May, where is she? What's the deal here? They reveal that she was with St. Joe and she was also like a drug addict, stuff like that. Kind of got like roped in with the wrong people. And the cops, are not having any of this. So one of the guy cops just takes the microphone and just says, like, when did, something like St. Joe, like, tell you he was selling the Baku to somebody? And the guy starts a seizure and his brain is going nuts. And I think what was it? I don't think it was shut down, or I think it was called blanking, actually. And what happens is if you give them a memory that didn't happen, their brain's searching for it and it kind of goes to kaput. And if you leave them long enough, they can just be like completely brain dead, no recovery and everything like that. So to me, that was very fun. Like, okay, again, you're having to guide the mind around this guy. Like he's trying to access a memory that does not exist. So that's why this guy's freaking out. This leads to multiple fights with Watts and him have a very interesting connection. They kind of go back. So she is his partner, and they've established very early on she's an alcoholic, and you start to learn more about her. And this movie feels very much like a book form, where some people get like 15 or maybe more like 10 minutes of like, oh, this is about Watts. This segment's about Watts, right? And we learn throughout the movie that she has a daughter that she's kind of left, and because of her alcohol, she's kind of, you know, left everybody and just wanted to be by herself. But they've also set up this thing that she is Nick's partner, but there is like they're friends, but there may or may not be an attraction that there, at least from her point of view. And then you start to learn that as the movie goes on. There's this great scene where Rebecca Ferguson and her are talking in a memory because they're just trying to find out anything about Rebecca Ferguson's character because all they know is Hugh Jackman. She comes in, hey, I lost my keys. Can I use this to find my keys? Okay. They play back the whole night. They realize, okay, she was a singer. She's singing a song from Hugh Jackman's childhood. So he's kind of instantly drawn to her. He kind of thinks it's like a, fate sort of deal. They're in love. And like I said, she disappears, right? So the idea is they're just going to find her. But then they slowly start to turn into, oh, she's a con artist and she's using us. So he's like trying to figure out what she would have done. And he's going through all his memories, like, oh, there's no sign of her conning me here yet. He does figure some stuff out. Let's go into your memory, Watts, aka Tandy Newton. And there's this kind of good scene where they have a conversation where she just says, like, I don't trust you because you just, seem like something's off. And she's saying about Rebecca Ferguson's May, who I'll talk about a bit more in a second about what I want to say non-slurs. But they do this moment where Tandy Newton says something and Rebecca Ferguson goes, like, oh, and she's like, oh no, like I didn't mean it like that. Like, don't tell Nick, like that's not how I meant it. And it's like showing that like she does have feelings for him or has had feelings for him. And then she goes into like a different bathroom to go drink and she's kind of embarrassed. And then at that point, Rebecca Ferguson goes to the vault and steals some stuff. So when they wake out of the dream or the reminiscence, Tandy Newton's right away like covering, like, oh, it's not what you think, blah, blah, blah. And then he's just right away, oh, you left her alone? How could you leave her alone? So he completely ignores everything as far as she's going. And that's the good thing about this character as far as Nick. Like once she goes missing, he is a man obsessed. That's his whole life. That's his whole career. It's just like, okay, how can I find out more? He's going to clubs where people keep kicking him out where she's sung. I was like, no, she doesn't work here anymore, dude. Like he is just obsessed because he thinks something bad may have happened to her. And then he kind of gets re-obsessed because he thinks he's a con, and now it's like, well, I need to pay this woman back. And not in a way, he never threatens to like hurt her or whatnot, but I think he just wants to know completely why she did these things. But again, it's kind of revealed that Watts has some sort of feelings and he just ignores that. And they kind of go throughout and everything like that. And they have a big breakup where he just tells her, like, I should have cut you loose sooner. You could have a life, you could see your daughter, but I've just kind of held you back and let you hide from the world. And I'm not going to do that anymore. He gets her a nice job. They talk later on. And I guess I'll just talk about this now. I'll lay out some of the other things we've seen. I really like the scene, their kind of final scene where the whole movie's went down. Hugh Jackman's definitely done some illegal things, but they're all, in the name of good, and they were kind of motivated by hate and anger and vengeance, but he did uncover some like very specific things for the police. But anyway, so he walks in, and again, this is spoilers. He walks in, it's like, I blanked someone on purpose. I think that's the term. So I hope I'm calling it. And then she's just like, oh, like trying to play it off like, oh, you must be mistaken. And he keeps saying that. And then they go outside and she's asked, like, why would you say that? And everything like that. They're going to use what's in my mind for a confession. And he goes, that's what I'm counting on. And he uses this moment of every bad thing that's happened to explain why he did what he did. And they kind of keep talking a little bit. And he says the line, like, she addresses Ty. And right then, like, okay, they're fully going on the, like, she has some sort of feelings. And he goes, like, you know what? That was maybe one of my most problems. I never saw what was right in front of me. Now, I think he's referring to her feelings and also like Rebecca Ferguson's character. He was just in love, so he could have picked up on some of the signs of cons. Like at one point, she's very bruised her arm, and he asks, and she's like, "Oh, that's nothing, people at work." But he doesn't really question it anymore. It just seems like he's just kind of loves to like, bypass it. But it's kind of like whatever is best for him, that's his focus. Everything else is background noise. Now, at the same point, he says that in a way where, and now we'll get to Rebecca Ferguson's main character, where, okay, it was revealed that she was completely bad and he should have been with Tandy Newton because he could have found love or should have been something. That's what he says. Oh, I missed everything that's in front of me, right? But what gets revealed with Rebecca Ferguson is like, no, she would have been a good person. You still would have been with her. So it's like a nice sentiment, but it's like you wouldn't have been with Watts. Like that's kind of a lie and everything like that. I get maybe things late earlier on and stuff like that, but that's where it's kind of muddy as far as I don't know if that works exactly. I wish you would have been like, I could have seen what was right in front of me and I would have told you that you deserved a lot better than me and you will, stuff like that. But it almost made it seem like they were like, oh, we could have been in love together. But no, like you love this other girl completely. And they really hit that home with his ending, which we'll get to. So May, right? We were talking about her. Rebecca Ferguson does a good job. There's a few scenes. There's one in particular I really like the dialogue back and forth where it's her and Hugh Jackman on this high building, and they're in love and everything. They're talking about stories and stuff like that, and she says like, "Tell me a story with a happy ending," and he goes, "Well, no ending's happy. They're all gonna end poorly." And she goes, "Well, tell me something in the middle. A story that ends in the middle happily or something like that." And that's really good. There's this really good moment where she says bye to Nick's character, saying bye to another character. We'll get to that, but really to Nick. So there's a few scenes, and I think that's the thing where the scenes where she gets to really go or act, she does a great job. She's just not in this movie that much, and her role is missing girl role, and that's where it's like that role you could have, and it helps getting someone like Rebecca Ferguson because she's an A class, A tier talented actress, right? So it helps, but you could have got anybody, not anybody, but a newer actress, someone no name. And I'm not saying take out Rebecca Ferguson. It helps. Their chemistry is great, everything like that. It's just that she's not in it that much, and the performance is there's not much there, but there's some fun. I think they have good chemistry, her and Hugh Jackman. They've worked together before, so that always helps. But you buy their love and the scene that she has to say goodbye. And so they do this thing where you have the reminiscence, right? And you can have there's like a big circle in the room, and it kind of portrays the scene or projects it in this big circle, like so you can literally watch and stuff like that. And it's like these little like white beads or stuff, like they were kind of like reflect everything. So there's this great scene where she is kidnapped by one of the main antagonists in the movie, if not the main antagonist, as far as like our physical threat. And he's just saying like it's tough to explain. She is like taking some. We'll get into the mystery part, but she has information he wants. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But we're just talking about the mystery part because that's kind of separate, and that's where it kind of gets a little convoluted, right? So she has information. She's not going to give it up. And the guy's pretty much just saying, you're going to die, or I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to torture you. I'm going to, do all this stuff to you. And he's literally shooting her with a baka. And she was like a recovering addict. And she's like stressed that she kicked it. It does prove that she did kick it. She's not a junkie. So like, it's just like, there's another show that I guess I won't say it because in case someone's never seen it, but it happened the past like decade. And there's a moment where someone is a recovering addict and someone like forcibly takes a needle and puts it in them, like jacks them up, and you just think that legitimately is like close to rape in my opinion, because that'd be someone, if someone had actually recovered. Recovery is very hard for people, especially drugs like a meth, which this is just where it's like kind of supposed to be, or kind of the equivalent to in this world. So it's like imagine kicking off that, getting somewhere off addiction, and then someone putting that against your will, and like yeah, you've quit once before, but you'd have to go through all that struggle again. So it's just like despicable what this guy is doing to her. This is this guy who's the dirty cop who is not looking good. He's looking like Two-Face. So she has this moment where she realizes she's not going to make it out of this alive. No matter which way it happens, there's like all options are gone. She at one point just before the scene was knocking on Nick's door, his business, and like threw an earring. So that kind of got him back on the track, but he was in that tank trying to find her. And it's just like, if he would have been out of that tank around, he could have got her and maybe this would have all changed, but his obsession kind of, and it's tough, right? Because the obsession was good because he found the mystery and he found out what happened to May. But at the same point, his obsession led him to being in this tank, and he missed May. And that's where she is like out of options now, because at that point of she throws the earring, but I think she knows, okay, there's going to be no way he can get to us in time. So there's this great scene where she starts to just fully admit that she's in love with this cop, everything like this, talks about their journey and their love and stuff like that. And you know this when we watch this, but just to double down, and then she ends with "I love you, Nick." And as a callback, because early in the movie he said that he loved her, and she's like, "It's been 2 months, like that can't be a thing." And that's like a big callback, like for me in my life. I was always like, I feel like there's like you can love somebody and almost be in love, but you can't fully be in love till there's like a certain point, right? Like even if you said love you as like a to respond to somebody, but I feel like you can't, you need to know everything about a person to fully love them. You need to date them for a while. You need to live and stuff like that. I'm not saying like I said I loved you, my fiance, before we lived together and stuff like that. I'm not saying that, but for me, as far as my single life, it was always like, yeah, you need a lot of information because people can just change on a dime. And that's what this movie is about too. Is like the whole time he thinks he's in love, but he also thinks this woman might be terrible because he gets to see these things that she's been doing. We'll get into that. And I guess this is where the big thing is too. It's revealed that yes, she was conning him, but it's because of her old life. She was, and I guess that's why St. Joe's really in this. There's not much reason other than that in an action scene, but it's revealed that she had to do all the stuff, fall in love with Hugh Jackman, which she does actually fall in love, but the con was to fall in love with Hugh Jackman so she can get into the Reminiscence library and get a slide, which will lead to some other mystery stuff, right? And she does fall in love with him, all this stuff, but that was one of my negatives where before he puts the dirty cop in the bathtub, and he's just like, there's two negatives I have here, and it just felt like it was out of place. The dirty cop is like, you're not gonna believe, like, you think you know her, you don't want to know her. So I thought what we're going to do is, oh, she is going to be the main antagonist, and she's gonna be behind this all, or one of the people behind this all, and she's gonna be a real cold-hearted, used him, terrible person, because earlier we saw her like attack a guy and stuff like that, and then we've had all these things about the con stuff and breaking into stuff. So it's like you're seeing all these signs, like, okay, she's doing these bad things, but then the reveals, yeah, this cop just says like, "Hey, St. Joe's looking for you. I can take you back there, or I could kill you now." Like, he has all these different ways of threatening her life, so she has to do this con against Nick, Hugh Jackman's character, against her will. To me, like, yeah, that's bad. Like, I understand that. Definitely wouldn't be cool, but that's not how a few times characters set her up. Like, you don't really know her. No, like, the biggest thing is she got addicted to drugs and made some mistakes, but then made a better life for herself, and just the sins of her past, someone threatened her life, right? It wasn't she was this big con artist. It wasn't that she was playing a bunch of people or she had this evil scheme. It's just she wanted a normal life, so she was gonna do this so she could be released. So that's where a few characters set up like, you think you know her, but it's just like, it's not that bad. Like, when you do the full reveal, they were trying to build it up as something darker. Now, if they would have went the darker route, I like that the scene we're about to get here, which I'm describing. I like the scene, but I think some of the stuff doesn't back it up, and I'll go back to that scene. The other point is he had learned, like, there's points in the movie where him and Tandy Newton talking about, like, she must have gone here and stole something. She used this for this, blah blah blah. And then as he's watching these cops reminiscence right before the scene I'm about to talk about, he's just like, she fucking played me. I'm just a mark and everything. It's just like, you knew this. You physically spoke like, "Oh, I've been used by this woman," and stuff like that. He was physically saying these lines like an hour ago. So it's like this revelation of, one, you're being used, you already knew, and two, her being this terrible, terrible person. Very debatable because her life was online, but it leads to this great scene where she knows she's gonna die. So, as I said, she professes love everything about Nick and says, "I love you, Nick." That's when the cop realizes, hey, this person's not fucking talking to me. And it's great because this cop, the way they showed a few times in the movie, looks like she's actually talking to this cop, saying that she loves him. And then the cop later on has like paid this actress to like reenact and like touching his face. She has a similar look as Rebecca Ferguson, same hair. So you go, oh, maybe there was something here with them. And she, like I said, maybe it was a darker thing, or she's just sleeping with people, getting her way. She's kind of like a mastermind. But no, it's not. That's just this cop super lonely because he got burnt to shit. And I'm sure ladies aren't speaking with him. But we get this great scene where she is talking to Nick because she knows Nick is going to get this memory and see it. So she's saying everything she would is almost like a goodbye letter to him. So he does this great thing where he's pushing through the beats and he stands where the dirty cop is, and he kind of like assigns. It's very much like Anna de Armas and Blade Runner, where she like morphs with Mackenzie Davis. It's kind of like that, where he morphs with the dirty cop in the memory, because she's like putting her hand on his face, so it puts the hands on his face. They kiss, so it's like they kiss, everything like that. I don't know how the kissing works in the hand, because it's like, it feels like that is not an actual thing there. It feels like it would be like a hologram, but whatever. It's a sci-fi world, right? And then that happens, and then she says goodbye. So what she does is she takes a bunch of the backup, just downs it, pretty much ODs herself, and jumps in the water to pass out and die and drown herself. And that was the scene I was referring to. Is, man, Hugh Jackman's acting it. Ooh, damn, he's good. Like, he's so fucking good. Like, the sounds he was making, how emotional was, and that's the thing. Like, actors all the time are doing crying scenes and whatnot, and those are very tough scenes. I'm not saying I could do them, but there's sometimes where we watch and go, oh, okay, I'm not. This is, you're being told you got to cry in the scene. I'm not feeling the emotion. Man, when she jumps and Hugh Jackman's like running after this kind of hologram, you feel it. You feel it, and it's real. And he is like a blubbering mess. He's making terrible noises, but good noises as far as like, yeah, this guy is upset. Like, this really rocked him. And just a shout out to Hugh Jackman, who's good this whole movie, but that scene in particular, man, really well done. And he's just one of the best to do it. And it's such a so it's a thing of that was a beautiful scene. So it's like, would I want the whole her being darker, a bigger mastermind? I don't need that. I just think they kind of misguided us, and not in a fun way of like, oh, we swerved you, just in a way of I don't believe these characters saying what they say now they revealed. It wasn't really that bad what she has done. Or she was fully conning him and some really bad stuff happened. There is one woman that loses her life, but then she kind of redeems herself by saving her son, which we're about to get into. So I think they just kind of built up some expectations that weren't really there. So we're gonna take our final ad break, and then I'll talk about a little bit of this mystery and a few little hanging stuff, and then we'll rate this movie. So I'll be right back. And we're back. So yeah, so the mystery overall is this is where it gets convoluted, but there's a guy from Joker who's literally playing the Joker character possibly again, where it's just like he's playing Thomas Wayne, but he's had an affair with somebody who had a baby and he wants to ignore it and stuff like that. He is sick. He is dying. He has this wife who maybe has Alzheimer's. She's not all there. She used to visit Nick and get reminiscence and whatnot. That'll come back later. He is going to die. So, and he has tons of money, right? He's like some mogul, and lots of people think his money could save or change a lot of things in the world if he were to disperse it. And he does it when he dies. It goes to his wife and his son and everything like that. And again, it all kind of ties together because they show like later on, one of the actresses from Westworld, she was in there wanting to reminisce about something, and it's about her hooking up with this guy. You don't see his face, you just hear his voice. But again, it's just like Hugh Jackman meets May, he meets the case down at the courthouse, and then he also meets this woman, and it's just like it's just a little too small worldish for me at sometimes. We're a little too convenient, and people know like that's one of my least favorite things. But all right, I can go with it, but it's just a little too convenient. Of really, all these people were just around you, and you happen to get involved. I know Rebecca Ferguson steals his stuff, but he was also involved two ways already before, so it makes sense as far as the woman I'm talking about who was having the affair with him. Rebecca first thing needs to go steal her memory because what is the big kind of twist is this guy's dying. He got her pregnant, and they obviously don't want this kid around because of well, it's actually not revealed him. The dad dies, and because at first they try to make it look like the dad. Let me try and get this character's name. Like it's of course he's not he's on the immediate list at all. Brett Cullen, that's the guy who plays Thomas Wayne, stuff like that, and he was in Dark Knight Rises. Walter Sylvan, yeah, Sylvan was the guy. So it's kind of portrayed the whole time as Sylvan is behind this or was behind this, but really it was like his snot-nosed son who he got some wind that there was another kid, so they need to kill this kid. How do we find this kid? Well, he had an affair with this woman. How do we find her? How do we find this kid? Well, let's get her reminiscence so we know everything about what he looks like, where to find him, stuff like that. And they do that. That's how the dirty cop gets involved. Saint Joe is, like I said, this like New Orleans mobster who the only reason he really is involved is it's supposed to get Hugh Jackman's working on this case with St. Joe, and that's how he sees Rebecca Ferguson. And we get to St. Joe. He lies and he says he's like some friend of Lorenzo's, like another drug guy. And he's like, I need 11 pallets. He's just lying to get more information about May. They see that they try to drown him in a tank of eels. That's when our first action set pieces is Watts comes and completely saves her ass. He was dead to rights, but she's shooting people, shoots the tank, and it's a really cool shot where he's in the water, a bolt goes by and it's like the tank breaks. She shoots St. Joe, and it's like in his lungs, and she's like, that's one of the worst ways to die possible, and I would know, and I wouldn't wish that upon my enemy. And he says, I'm like, I'm not like, then don't give me that enemy's death or whatever. And she does put him out of misery, and I like that. That was a character development. Like, I know some people might like to the badass moment of like, well, you chose this. Like, no, like this guy, like he is bad, but he was just like Nick kind of went in there a little too like cocky, and like he's lying to everybody. So I'm not saying you should kill someone for that, but in this world, that's very risky to do. So I think she kind of understood that, and then she put him out of her misery, and I like that. So St. Joe's really just a ties to the dirty cop and to May. The dirty cop was working with him, and later on, it's just like, oh, we've seen him before. It's a lot of, we see someone, then 10 minutes later, oh, that person is important. Oh, that person is important. And again, lots of convenient. Like I said, I think lots of even with St. Joe, you could have found a way to take out or make a bit shorter. I don't mind anything but St. Joe, but it just that wasn't that really needed. Other than introducing a few characters, I feel like you could have maybe melded some. But anyways, like I said, so they pay this the son pays the dirty cop who's now burnt. They like burned him up for some reason, and yeah, it didn't go well for him. And we'll get back to that later. He is paid by the son to find this kid, kill him, so the money's all his. So Rebecca Ferguson gets, she does the con, everything like this. There's a great flashback or watching the reminiscence of them practicing, like her dropping the keys so Nick will see, and all setting up her motive and her alibi and everything like that. He says some sort of line just inferring that yes, this guy has a mistress, and why would we need to kill him, inferring like we need to kill a child. So Rebecca Ferguson has not a change of heart, but her heart goes through, and he kills the mother, the mistress, and very brutal scene, stabs her. But I love a little character bit of like, oh, you're lucky I did you first and not your kid. Throws her in the water, and he's like, hey, Freddie. He's trying to be really nice, which I know adults can try to trick kids, but it's like, oh man, you just gutted his like a mom in front of him and threw her in the water. I feel like this is not the time to be pitching, but Rebecca Ferguson runs, saves the kid. So she gets him out of Dodge. And like I was referring to earlier in the interrogation scene, he's looking for the kid, but she will not give him up. When she was homeless, was like living on this boat. At one point, someone like cut her free and just like stole her shit and then pushed her on the water. And she kind of came across this woman who just lives in the middle of the body of water and just by herself, kind of retired. So she put the kid, at this place to hide him because no one would think it. And the only way this is because she told Nick the story earlier. So when she says again the reminiscence, he's like, okay, that's where the kid is. He figures it all out about the son. There's a bunch of phone numbers, this and that, and everything. And like I said, the Sylvan's wife, the billionaire's wife that dies, she's kind of out of it. There's this strange scene where I think because she's older, she can't go to Reminiscence. So what they do is they show this one point where she used to come back for Reminiscence to have these moments of with Sylvan, a loving moments. At a clock shop, they're talking about when she's pregnant. She's like, oh, I feel like it could be a boy. So it's like a loving memory of these two, right? He's dead. She can't go in the Reminiscence, I presume. So what she's doing is they've built this set and they're having actors come in there and act as Sylvan and do all this stuff. So like every day she's just living this kind of memory and whatnot. At one point she starts to freak out because Hugh Jackman's questioning her a bunch, and the only way the son can like calm her down is he has to put on the hat and his own dad's getup, and like dance with her. So like she's thinking this is her husband, his father. So she's like being romantic, wanting like to really like nicely cuddle, and he's just like, I'm doing this. This is fucking weird. But that's where the finale takes place for them, that Hugh Jackman calls him out. And it was weird because he does get taken out. And this is where it's a little convenient too. Like I think they set up enough, but he goes there posing as actor. They throw him out because it's like, you're disturbing our family or anything like that. They tell the guards to shoot him. They go to shoot him, and he has a tattoo of like his war years. And they go like, don't let this ever happen again. You get a reprieve. So it's like, I get it. You set up that like, okay, you're also a veteran, but at the same time, this is like a high level, powerful person paying you to get this done. And it's like, if that person ever pops up, I feel like that is your ass. So that was a little like an eye roll, like, yeah, I guess it works, but it's just a little too easy for me. But later on, he just walks back in the house. They kind of at first it's like, how do they do this? And at first he kind of insinuates that like, oh, everyone's finding out about your plot to kill this kid and how you want just your father's inheritance. So it's like, okay, the cops know. They escorted him in there, and he's like, the cops will figure out soon. So it's like the same thing of like, it was a cool moment, but it's like, how did he get back in this house when they were said like, if you ever come back here, we're gonna fucking kill you? And it's not like there's a scene where he's sneaking around. He literally just walks in the front door. So a few, like I said, logic jumps there. But the son, he's a coward. He goes to shoot Hugh Jackman. He can't. He's gonna shoot himself, and Jackman just points out like, that's why I hired all these people, because you don't have the bone to do it yourself. So he's gonna go to prison. This little kid's gonna get everything. The dirty cop, I forgot to mention in that great scene when they're looking at the reminiscence, he just says like, I want you to think about the worst moment of your life, the worst pain you've ever felt. And he thinks about the day he was burnt. And then pronouns, pal. Nick says as like a punishment, he's going to just make him replay that over and over. So he puts him on some loop, and it's pretty much like anytime he's getting burnt, and then right when it stops, it like loops back. So he's just getting burnt hours and hours of in this tank. He's just shaking. And it was great because that to me was more warranted. Watts earlier, when she could have done the like, oh, I'll let you bleed, I'll let you be in pain, it didn't have the weight. This you want to see, because this guy's a dirty cop. He's a piece of shit. He's also just like really emotionally unstable. Like he, like I said, he was that guy that like drugged her up again when she was kick the habit and everything like that. He's just kind of creepy too in general, and good job to the actor. I can't remember the guy's name. I think he's in like Fear the Walking Dead. I know he's in Hubshaw. He's in a bunch of stuff, but he's kind of a good character actor. But yeah, he just leaves him in this tank to just continually be on fire over and over, and it's not the way you want to go. But he, as meaning Nick, has a conscience of, like I said, he goes to Watts and he admits this all. He says everything he did, stuff like that. So the punishment was is he led to this big bust of, right, they found the kid, they found out, the bad son had set up this plot. He took out multiple things, found, some sources to drugs. So he did a lot of good, right? But he still did some illegal things. He still blanked this guy's mind on purpose, which would all bring in his brain so you could prove it. So they make some sort of settlement where he's gonna not go to prison. Like, he's gonna serve time, but not in prison. He's gonna be like in house arrest, pretty much. And what his plan do, and it seems like he's in there for a while because when we see him again later on, he has gray hair in this tank. But I absolutely love this ending and the montage, the score, which was really good. There's some tracks in here, and the end credit song that they use in the trailer was really good too. His punishment, which is, it's kind of punishment, but not really. It's tough. It's like a very sad, like Twilight Zone, Black Mirror type of ending where you don't know how to feel. It's uneasy, it's happy, but it's also just fucked up. It's just like, what a way to live. And do you want to live that way? It's very Inception-y too, of like, what, like, where would you want to live? Like when people mention with Cobb when he gets back, and there's all these theories of why the kids are real. It's like, I've heard, I think it's Nolan that says, like, at that point he doesn't care. Like, even if the kids were fake, he just wants to be in that moment. So what they do is he's going to serve like house arrest, at least probably 10 years, but he's going to be in this machine and he's just living his time over and over. And it starts with her walking in, being like, hey, I've lost my keys. Can you help me? To, I imagine, to like a happy point, and then it just keeps going back. And he's living his whole life, 10 years in this tank, you know, just reliving the love of his life because that's who it was. But he only had her for a few months. But for him, they even say this where, because he told Tandy, like, you got to move forward. Your daughter is the end game, like your daughter, and repairing that. That's what life is. And so she's taking care of him. She's giving him flowers. I imagine checking up on him, and she's there with her granddaughter. And she asks, like, what happened here? This is your friend. Like, do you think he chose right? And she says, like, well, I chose to go forward. He chose to stay in the past. And I think it was the best decision for both of us. And it's kind of insinuating that and maybe there's a way that you could go past it, but he did love May so much, and the fact that she did kind of, have that big goodbye message that she did love him too, that he's not going to find a love. And maybe there's a chance where he ends up like Watts, where he's alive but he's just gonna be drinking, he's gonna be even more downtrodden. So for him, he wants to reveal or relieve his consciousness of showing all the bad things he did, and almost like, to crack the mystery, he would have to go and say, hey, point A to point C happened. And then they would probably go, okay, great. Can we see that in your mind? And then the second you saw his mind, you'd see all this illegal stuff he did. So either it was conscious, or he just knew, I'm not going to run and I want to take these people down. So it's either consciousness or he's being selfless. Either way, he will ask for one selfish act, and that's to be in this tank to see his life. And there's something sad and beautiful that it's not real. She's dead. She's not there. He's literally aging in this tank. Like, like I said, he's gray by the end, looking like an old man, but he's living these moments over and over again, these moments that he completely loves and are probably the best of his life. So it's this very sad, happy, heartbreaking ending. And there's like some great monologues and great speeches going on and music. And like I said, it like made you really think about life and, your partner, if you have one, and appreciating them. And just, it's kind of, Tandy Newton at one point, I think, talks about, or maybe it's me, I can't remember which one. I'm just saying, like, you don't want to revisit the bad moments because you don't want to dwell on them, but you also don't want to relive the good moments because nothing else will compare to that. And that's where, again, he's in this tank because, yeah, nothing else will compare to that. So he's just going to live it over and over. And it is good, as far as at one point she even says something where she's watching the memories with him. She's like, I didn't know it was that mug. And he's like, yeah, because it's not your main focus. There's all these things in life around you, but if you're not really taking time to appreciate them, it's just a mug. It's just something. So yeah, and I even like the way they deal with, because some people, they like the room. Oh, excuse me, I had to crack my neck there. It was a big pain there. They see the reminiscence in first person, but then other people see in third person. She goes like, how do you do that? Doesn't make sense. You're seeing my memories. But he says like close your eyes, and he's talking about like imagine your first kiss, imagine all the details, and he says like you're picturing yourself though, right? And he says, and this is true at the end of it, he's like the more you think about the memory, the more you picture yourself in third person, but you weren't a third person. I stumbled that the other day with my fiance. It's like it's so funny that in our lives, like if I lived to 60, even now with me knowing her for 8 years in November, in those 8 years, she's the person I've seen the most, like legitimately as far as like my life. This is my life. I see myself right now in this camera, but like when you're walking around as this human avatar and you're looking around, you see that person more than you see yourself thousands of hours, hundreds of, minutes and stuff like that. I should have swapped them. But either way, so that was kind of fun. It's like, yeah, but then when you think about stuff, you don't think about that way, right? You're thinking about the stuff you do in life and day. You don't think about like, yeah, I see other people more than myself. You don't really see yourself that much in life. So there's some fun kind of like existential, not crises, but just thinking about, and especially because it's more, he's an older character, so think a little bit about mortality and stuff like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think that's most. And as far as like, I think I talked about action, there is, what is there? There's a scene with St. Joe. That's a shootout. There's a scene where he chases a dirty cop. That's the most Bond action it gets. You've seen this in the trailer where they end up in like this watery house, and that's some good imagery. They use the one shot too where Hugh Jackman's like swimming in this like, I don't know, must have been like a theater or something. So there's like a piano, and there's like a big stage with a big drape and everything. Great, beautiful shot. So you've seen that before you saw the trailer, but it was good in the moment, the scene, and they used that really kind of cleverly, and it all looked. I like the water aspect. I like that as a fun world building thing. So, and that's kind of about it. Like I said, there's not much. It's not an action movie. It's a detective noir mixed with some sci-fi. So what would I rate this movie? I think I'm going to go think I'm gonna give it a 9. There's always a chance when I watch it that I could go to 9.5. Definitely not 10, like I said. And but I guess like if you're doing percentages, it's weird because like when I say it's like, do I think this of an A movie? No, but I guess if I give something like a 10, that's like an A plus me, right? But I did enjoy it a lot. Like I said, it's my top 5. Kind of my like negatives were some sort of obvious, some predictableness, some convolutedness as far as some of the meandering plot in the middle. I felt you could have shortened, brought back together, put combined. Um, some of the like reveals or setups that I think didn't really pay off, but overall, I had a really good time with it. I've kind of said all the praise, but the cast is great. I like the murder mystery enough. I really like the world building. I like the emotional impact of what happens to our main character Nick and the journey he goes on. I really enjoy that. They got some good chemistry going on with Rebecca Ferguson and him. Like can't go wrong with pairing that. The action that was there was good. So I'll definitely watch this again. This is a movie that's right up my alley. So thank you very much for tuning into this review. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, whether it's YouTube, check out the GV Discord, which I always forget to promote at the beginning. Hit me up on Twitter at TravisBSnail, Facebook, whatever it may be, and we can talk about it. And if you liked it, let me know. If you didn't like it, where are you on it? But yeah, I think it's kind of a hopefully going to be a sleeper cult hit in the next few years, and I hope people give it a chance. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I promise when you hear from me next, it'll not be boring.